Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the 2021 RISE webinar series number 6. Today's webinar will be about land-based education at Kiskinhamakiwin with Taylor Galvin. And today is April 15th, 2021. So our agenda, so basically it's an hour in length webinar. I want to welcome myself first, and then I'll welcome my co-host. My name is Chantel Henderson. I am the Indigenous Programs Outreach Coordinator at the, for the First Nations Waste Minimization Project here at Green Action Center. I don't see video. I'm just gonna try to, there we go. All right, here I am. So I am Ojibwe. I'm from Sagin and Penamutang First Nations here in Manitoba. My spirit name is Sacred Tree Woman. And before we begin, I want to do land acknowledgement. So the Green Action Center is located on the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, Anishinaabeg, Dakota, and Dene peoples. It is also the homeland of the Métis Nation. We acknowledge that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, and the hydroelectricity we use comes from numerous First Nation territories around Manitoba. I'd like to hand the mic over to my co-host, Beth.
Hi everyone, I'm Beth McKechnie and I work with Chantel in the First Nations Waste Minimization Project. I'm a settler living in Treaty 1 territory. And so we're just going to try this again in terms of if you're not familiar with Zoom, because we want you to be able to talk to each other and share. So if you scroll with your mouse down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see right in the middle there's a chat feature. And when you click on it, it comes up where you can type in a message, but you can choose to send it just to the four of us that are panelists, or you can send it to everyone. So you need to go to the drop-down menu and choose all panelists and attendees if you want everyone to see it, because we welcome you to introduce yourself and say hi to others. So if you're comfortable doing that, please go ahead. And also if you have any questions, we're going to keep the Q&A to the end, but if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to share them in the chat column throughout the presentation. So thanks.
And we just want to remind everybody that the video and audio has been muted for all attendees except for the host and the presenters. That's just to ensure there's no distractions or outside noises. If there's any technical issues you may be experiencing, please direct them to the comment box and Beth will do her best to help you out. So onwards to our speaker introduction. So we have Taylor Galvin. Taylor is a land-based educator, student, and present founder of, Taylor's land-based educator, student, and president founder of University of Manitoba Indigenous Concerns on the Environment, otherwise known as UMICE. Along with her studies and work, she's been working with Indigenous youth for 10 plus years. Taylor's been a member on the board of directors for the Boyden, I hope I said that right, Broken Head Wetlands and Turkey Trail, and the University of Manitoba radio station UMFM 101.5. As a land defender and water protector, she hopes to work with First Nations communities to help them with their own environmental monitoring, gardening programs. In addition to Taylor, there has been an additional presenter, and he will introduce himself.
Hello, bonjour, ojashku kanu in an Indigenous cause, mikanak and dodem. My name is Dylan Kensick. I'm also a student at the University of Manitoba with a focus in biodiversity and conservation of an environmental studies degree. I'm also part of the Kiskinhamakiwin project and co-chair of the University of Manitoba Indigenous Concerns on the Environment, which is a student group within our environmental department at university. And I could just say, hey, hello everybody. I'm also from Saugeen, so it's nice to hear that there are others here from there. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. That's who I am.
All right, thanks. Welcome, Dylan. So you may take away your presentation.
Excellent. Miigwech, Chantal, and Beth for your beautiful introductions. So as mentioned, I'm Taylor. Ojoa Mushkade Bijikain Dijnikazgi Gudo Dem Anishinaabe. So my spirit name is Brown Buffalo. I'm from Broken Head, Ojibwe Nation, which is about 45 minutes north of Winnipeg. So it's not too far. I'm from the Fish Clan. And as mentioned, I'm just finishing actually this week, my 4th year at the U of M. And I've been working with Kiskinamakowin since 2019. Yeah, so about 3 years now. We've been running our camps. Obviously, this previous year, this last summer that just passed, we haven't had the chance to really go out to communities or host our workshops and other events that we normally do because of COVID. So we're trying to integrate new ways of how we can approach land-based education and how we can deliver it in this virtual world that we're doing right now. So that's what we are currently doing. But exciting news is that in the next upcoming months in this summer, we are actually planning camps. So it does look like we are going to be able to get out and do these workshops and do these 3 to 5 day youth camps with communities around Manitoba, such as Nelson House. We've got Tatasquiac, Cree Nation, Broken Head, perhaps Saugeen again, but all of that's still in the works right now.
Okay, so the Kiskinamakowin project, this is pretty much the basics of it. It was originally a 3-year initiative through the Environmental Conservation Lab at the University of Manitoba. It's been extended due to our, I guess, just the it's been kind of compromised this year because of COVID, and last year we weren't able to kind of engage with communities, visit them, stuff like that. So the main goal of this project is to visit different communities and kind of bring, I guess, university science and engage with the youth and elders, and I guess in a sense kind of integrate traditional knowledge with scientific knowledge. So we can do that pretty much just by bringing tools, equipment, education, interacting with the community, playing games, activities, getting out on the land, and actually just really learning about the earth, the land, and just the different beings. We also have collaborated with a couple of different land guardian programs in 2 different nations in northern Manitoba, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes here.
So one of the things I like to bring up when doing this presentation is the importance of traditional ecological knowledge and land-based knowledge, and why it's important that we really integrate that type of learning into school systems as well as in First Nations. There are a lot of land-based programs that they're doing, but we like to go into these communities and help build on their land-based knowledge that they already have. But the reason why this way of learning is so important is because as Indigenous people, we know that the environment is not something to be conquered. It is something that we need to be respectful of. And it's where we get all of our food and our medicines from. So we need to really pay respect to that. So for thousands of years, Indigenous peoples across Canada have lived sustainably with Mother Earth, Creator, and all things living and non-living. Our traditional knowledge of the land, plants, water, and wildlife have helped in keeping our environments thriving and sustainable. And we now see a lot of collaboration with Western scientists or university or researchers coming in and asking for that traditional knowledge. They're asking to work with Indigenous peoples, elders, knowledge keepers to help environmental monitoring, mapping, conservation, biodiversity. So it's really great to see that this TEK, this traditional ecological knowledge, is finally getting recognized for what it's worth. It's been around for millennia, since time immemorial, and now, and science is so brand new, right? It's such a young, what's the word I'm looking for? Field of study, I suppose. So it's nice to see that our knowledge is being respected in that sense. And then also we know that the life has spirit, the land has experience. We are guardians of biological diversity, and we want the youth to understand this as well, because our work is based on the next 7 generations, right? We're learning from the 7 generations before us, and we want to teach the next 7 generations behind us. So we look for those reciprocal relationships, and like said, looking to the next 7 generations. And for educators, and if anybody here is an educator, I can't see the chat, I apologize. So maybe Chantel or Beth, if there are questions, you can just kind of give me a little heads up and I'll check the chat. But for educators, there is a difference between this place-based learning and Indigenous land-based learning. We're seeing a lot more land-based learning coming into curriculums, into high schools, middle schools, what have you. They're getting these kids on the land because they're starting to see the value behind this way of learning. So even though these terms are interchangeable, they are a bit different. So place-based education does not acknowledge Indigenous history, cultural knowledge, or all the places where once continued to be Indigenous lands, as we had the land acknowledgement at the beginning of this webinar. And then Indigenous land-based learning integrates ways of knowing, learning, and being while honoring the spiritual, ancestral, and physical aspects of the land. So there's a lot of details of why land-based learning and land-based education is very valuable to the Indigenous youth that we work with.
This might look familiar to people. Obviously, just a map of the different treaties that have been signed, and I think this is sourced. This isn't brand new. This isn't 2021 map. There are actually probably some more, well, either agreements or treaties, whatever you really want to call them, within Quebec, BC, and even Yukon, and there's unlisted acknowledgements here. But our camps take place in Treaty 1, 2, 3, and 5 so far. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess we'll continue on to our camps. So the camps that were in the treaties I just listed, this was 2019, so a couple years ago. Broken Head, Saugeen, Kesey, Couchiching, and South Indian Lake. These pictures are kind of a variety of all the different camps. As you can see here, there's some water testing with different equipment and tools, and they're at the beach testing different waters. Same thing can happen or is happening on the lower left corner here. The bottom middle is a boat ride with the youth, and the bottom right is a water source, I believe in Kesey. This is the fresh drinking water where they fill up the trucks by the looks of it. These pictures are from Broken Head, and one of them was actually used in the advertisement of this presentation, the bottom right here, a little canoe trip on the Broken Head River.
That was a very fun day.
So these kind of just displays some of the activities that are happening at the camps. In top left here, we kind of just discuss with the kids what they think about science and their different perspectives on science, and then different aspects of science, or environmental science, I should say. So water, trees, fungi, insects, whatever the case is, environmental science. More water testing here. So these kits are actually mobile labs from WagTech, and they test for a variety of different chemicals and also microbiology. So basic, I guess, they're more basic water quality tests. They'll test for chlorine, pH, nitrites, nitrates, fluoride,
arsenic,
arsenic.
lots of different tests, and then heavy metals like lead and copper. We can't test for mercury just yet, but we're working on that for this summer because we may be going up to Grassy Narrows. It's undecided as of yet because of COVID restrictions, of course.
So on the top right, we have a knowledge holder. He's kind of just discussing the different medicines in the bush here.
This is at the Deb Webden Broken Head Wetlands Interpretive Trail. That's where that picture is. It's a very sacred site in Broken Head, so it was very important that we take the youth there to teach them about the traditional medicines, historical medicines that have been growing there for hundreds of years. So there's like over 290 different species of plants and flowers just along that like 1 kilometer boardwalk. So when we take them there, it seems very overwhelming when you're getting all of this traditional knowledge just thrown at you, but it also showcases that what's out there and what our people have lived off of for however long, right? So it's and I highly encourage all of you to go and visit. It's only like a 50 minute drive maybe up Highway 59 North. So it's beautiful. Go check it out.
Yeah, and the whole trail is on a boardwalk like this in the wetlands, so it's very easy to walk. And in the middle here is a little ice dyeing activity that kind of incorporates and I guess acknowledges the different stages of, or different, stages or compositions of water. So we'll use ice and tie dye for the shirts, put the ice on a cage, and as I guess it melts, it'll collect the dye and it'll dye on the shirt as a water. So it just kind of incorporates the water cycle, which is fun for kids and everybody. More pictures from another camp. This looks like Saugeen. Lots of nature hikes and hands-on learning here.
So when we did our Saugeen camp, we actually didn't host this camp right in the community. We ended up going to the Musqueam project, which I know that I saw that there were some people from Saugeen in the chat as well. So that's just on the Broadlands Road, just down there. So that was a 5-day camp where we all stayed right on the location at the Musqueam project. As you can see, starting from the top right, which one? This one here. That was a quarry that we went swimming in, and then moving over, you got fish filleting with Elder, I think his name, it was Ron Guimond, and then we went to Coca-Cola Falls, kayaking to the rapids, and then we do nature scavenger hunts. And one thing that we find really important in all of the camps is to do sharing circles at the end of the day. So this gives the youth and elders a chance to speak to one another about what they're learning from each other, what kind of information they're gathering about the land around them, how it's changed throughout the year. So that's how we really start building those relationships and bridging that gap in between the youth and the elders.
Okay, so this is South Indian Lake, or Opipanapiwin. And this is actually the camp that I originally volunteered. This is how I kind of got interested in this type of work. So I volunteered, went up north with the crew to just do the camp with the community here. And here's another example of a sharing circle with the youth. So this actually took place in the school's home economic kitchen, which is pretty cool. But there was an elder by the name of Minnie Moose, and she kind of talked about the different medicines that she was using and picking around, and how the land kind of changed after the flood, and just different aspects about her life and traditional knowledge. So you guys seen this picture earlier, boat ride with the kids. There was more than one boat, and what we were doing here is visiting the communities. I guess their old community, or where their camps are, their annual camps. Big story behind that. Kind of unfortunate, and it was originally a displaced community, and that's why there was some travel between communities. But this is actually South Indian Lake itself. I believe this picture was right outside the water treatment plant. More bushwalks, and we were able to get a tour of the water treatment plant and just show the kids how water gets treated from the lake to being able to drink it safely. Yeah, it was super fun. They all look excited here. Okay.
So the environmental impacts. So when we go into the communities that we do, sometimes sometimes they're remote locations, sometimes they're not, but nonetheless, they're all some way affected by whether it be hydro, such as Opipinapiwin, the last pictures that we showed you from South Indian Lake. So as Dylan had mentioned, they were displaced because they used to live in like islands, sort of. And then when hydro development started coming in, they flooded their entire community, their old community. So they were moved onto like kind of like a mainland. So they're still feeling the repercussions of what their grandmothers and grandfathers have gone through. So hydroelectricity obviously is a big important one because we do work with a lot of Northern First Nation communities, and it's hard to really explain the amount of environmental degradation that's happening within these communities until you go up there and really see it for yourself. But hopefully one day you can experience that, or maybe you're possibly from there. I'm not sure. But also we deal with agriculture. So Kisikuanin Ojibwe Nation they're right around Riding Mountain National Park. And as if you can ever see a map of Riding Mountain, you can see the park and everything around it is all agriculture. There's a term for that, I believe. It's like
it's like,
oh, I don't remember. It'll come back to me though. But it's surrounded by agriculture, just like plots and plots of it. And then you have Kisi right in the middle of all this agriculture. So they're the ones that are feeling like all the runoff from the pesticides, all of that. Yeah. And then urban development is another one. So Broken Head, for instance, because we're in such close proximity to Winnipeg, we're seeing all this urban development around the beaches, from Selkirk and Winnipeg as well. Pulp and paper mills was one that we worked with Couchiching First Nation in Ontario, right next to Fort Frances. There used to be a large pulp and paper mill there that has really altered their soil conditions and quality. So we went up there and we did some soil sampling. And then of course decreased water quality caused from just all those points up above. Loss of habitat and biodiversity, that one's important, a big one as well, because as you see this industry move in, you're seeing a lot more things like clear cutting, where all of that wildlife habitat is being diminished. And then now they have these corridors that completely affect the way that they move, they hunt, they raise their young. Pollution and erosion are big ones as well.
Okay, so this is pretty much our goal approach. This is not our term. This is actually, we've learned a lot about this in our classes too. But we really tried to use this approach when we're doing this work and with the communities. And like I was kind of talking about earlier, it's essentially trying to use Western science and seeing through one eye with that, and then traditional ecological knowledge in the other eye. And it can sometimes be different. There's some things that there's some times that these don't really integrate that well, but for the most part they do, and it can be explained. But these are some just examples of how we go upon doing that. So with the traditional ecological knowledge, engage with the community, we really try to get the elders or the knowledge holders' perspective on them, because that's raw data right there, directly from the community, directly local knowledge. So that's super important to us, and it's most likely been passed down for generations. Obviously the Western ecological science, more testing, more observing, more experiments, stuff like that. I'm not saying that traditional ecological knowledge doesn't have those types of things, but it's just more of a base of kind of testing and experiments with the Western science. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when you take this approach into your land-based work that you're doing, it's very fascinating to see that when you start planning your workshops and your camps with these communities and these youth that you're working with, now you start to see this balance. You start to see this relationship begin to build between the Indigenous peoples of the community and the scientists, whether it be us who are of Indigenous descent or non-Indigenous researchers and scientists coming in. But once this starts to happen and you start to communicate with one another, you see that the traditional ecological knowledge, the knowledge holders, are so keen to learning the science behind their knowledge. And then you see the scientists come in and you see them wanting to learn this traditional ecological knowledge that they don't understand. So that's why we take this two-eyed seeing approach, because it really doesn't only just benefit us going into the community, and it doesn't just benefit the community with us going there. It's really a partnership and a collaboration amongst these two platforms to join together to build this like super force, right, of environmental awesomeness. That's what I like to say. So I included this quote down here because when this term was first coined, the gentleman who kind of started using this term had said, "Two-eyed seeing is the gift of multiple perspectives, treasured by many Aboriginal peoples, and explains that it refers to learning to see from one eye with the strengths of Indigenous knowledge and ways of knowing, and from the other eye with the strengths of Western knowledge and ways of knowing, and to using both eyes together for the benefit for all," which is basically kind of what I just said. So,
Okay, these are, yeah, this is kind
that
of,
was my bad. I should have moved this more to the end, this slide. I apologize.
but this is some of our, I guess, hands-on work, some of our resources that we can provide. As you can see on the bottom here, there looks like these are different books that we're developing. So my focus is I'm pretty well connected to plants, and that's kind of my learning domain. And I've developed a plant identification guide that incorporates language and culture, but also the science behind identifying different plants, mostly edible and food plants. And then we have a wildlife information booklet that's Taylor's domain. She's really in tune and likes to learn about the animal beings.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had another student that focused on fish. And there's also additional
Water.
books. There's water quality, and well, yeah, I think there's just one other additional water quality, but we'll probably develop additional books that kind of add different aspects of environmental science.
Yeah, for sure. And then as I'm sure you know, resource development is quite long, tedious work. So we're still working on the other booklets, but they are coming along. So we're hoping to get all these out and shared with people, hopefully by summertime. So
Also, there's a podcast which is connected to our site, which is landlearning.ca. Taylor talks with different knowledge holders, elders, and there's actually other people who talk on there, but mainly environmental science, traditional knowledge, little bit of politics, not her or our talk, but it's on there regarding obviously Indigenous
environmental issues.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, check out the website. Okay, this is one of our trips with a land guardian collaboration. This was Nelson House, I believe. So we went up there. They talked about they had seen different things that they didn't really like in their water, mostly just like color and substances. So they invited us up to just not integrate, sorry, just kind of engage with them and test their water. So this is their office there, and this is me, where we actually collected a sample of water not too far from the office. And we were working with the different guardians there, just collecting data, and we eventually made a report for them on what we found. So we did a little bit of traveling on the water, and this is another site that they were kind of concerned about, which is a traditional cultural historic site. and we took some water samples there, but you can see from the rock line here that there's a little bit of light shading on the bottom. That's actually the fluctuation of water that happens randomly and rapidly. So it can be pretty unsafe to travel, especially in winter.
That's good. Oh yeah, and then just this middle picture here, that's me chatting with an elder from Nisitchawai Cree Nation, and we take all these videos and interview them about how the land has changed, what's changed, the importance of land-based education, and then we're hoping to make like a really a lot of video content for the website that others can use and learn about from these other communities. So these are other pictures over this past summer. One of the only trips we were able to do was to go up and visit Tatasquiac Cree Nation, also known as Split Lake. We went to their summer camp and we worked with the youth and the elders there, and we presented our mobile testing labs and just kind of collaborated and worked with them, building those connections, because now this summer we are going up there and hosting a camp with them. But one of their biggest concerns is that with the opening of Kiosk, the new dam, they are like right smack in the middle of like three different dams up north, and their community and their lake is just, the water quality is just falling very fast.
Yeah, water can be pretty toxic.
Yeah, so that's why we're going to be working up there. These are just some other shots from their family camp up at Troy Lake, because Split Lake is getting so polluted and contaminated, they can't have their land-based camps there. So they travel to Troy Lake, which is absolutely a beautiful lake. We have a video to show. There's no talking or anything in it. It's about 3 minutes long, but we don't have to watch the whole thing because I know we are a little pressed for time right now. If we can just show maybe like half the video, this should just give you a better visual of where we're working, who we're working with, and some of the places that we visit. So the beginning shot, I'm not sure if anybody has ever visited Pisu Falls, but oh my goodness, if you haven't, put it on your bucket list. Right around Thompson area, go check it out. We can kind of chat about where it is.
Okay, so the first little bit, this was actually in this one. This is Split Lake. So there was been this was at their camp. Kind of a cool story behind that boulder. We really wanted to just capture this because of there was some sort of story behind whether it was an impact or erosion movement rock through ice. This is where they have their land-based camps. Super beautiful lake, super clean water, lots of fish. They actually pull out a net full of fish before we got there. This is Bipole 3. Big clear cut for hydro. This is the Odie River. As you can see, a lot of the erosion taking out the trees. Split Lake.
So you see the water quality in these videos, it's almost like black, right? It's very, very murky. And
they say that this water used to be able to see the substrate, the bottom, used to be able to see fish swimming,
and these islands here that you're seeing, all the trees are beginning to fall into the water from the fluctuating water levels, right? And because the land is falling into the water, it's hard to deter. It makes it dangerous for these men to be out. They can't even fish in their lands anymore. It's dangerous for people on boats because you don't know whether you're going to hit a tree or what was once an island.
These are some sort of blooms. Looks like some sort of vegetation. We weren't able to get a sample or anything, but this is not something that has happened there in the past. This has only been happening ever since the development and degraded water quality. So more erosion there. A lot of these used to be pretty sandy beaches too. But
Mhm.
this here is the Grand Rapids. We actually happened to get there right as they were opening the gates. So as you can see, right where this rushing water is, a few days before that, you were able to walk across there, and there was like maybe a little bit of a trickle.
Bloody the land.
This is
Yeah.
the berm
I think
at
you can
Grand
stop
Rapids.
the video about now. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's pretty well
Yeah,
it.
that was pretty much it. And then I'll go back and I'll finish our presentation here quickly so we can get through questions. Oops. Okay. So next, I just kind of wanted to flip things over and then kind of talk briefly about the University of Manitoba Indigenous Concerns on the Environment. It is a new student group that Dylan and myself have started and have kind of kept the ball rolling on at the university. So we started in 2019. And the goal of our student group is to learn and share Indigenous teaching, stories, and knowledge with post-secondary students, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, collaborate with elders and knowledge keepers. Each month we have a speaker, so we bring in elders, environmental professionals, land guardians, water protectors, anyone who has this type of knowledge and that wants to share with us. So what we do is that we work with other student groups and amongst ourselves to build a sustainable future for students and for the University of Manitoba. Students also gain TEK, and we're working towards another aspect of reconciliation at the university. So I just added a couple pictures here. So here's some of the things that we have done in the past. Obviously, because a lot of the work that we do is all land-based for our student group. We haven't been able to do much. Again, COVID as always. But some of the things we have done in the past is deer skinning. We are the first group in the history of the University of Manitoba to bring in an actual deer and do the skinning and butchering and cooking of it all right at Migiziagamik, which is the Indigenous Student Center at the university. We also had like 13 pounds of fish to fill it with the students that day, along with the deer. So it was a really fun. And then afterwards, as you know, that we, as Indigenous people, we use every single part of the animal. So that's what we wanted to do with the deer skinning. So we kept the hide. We got it, what's the word, like cured kind of, so what's the word for it that you would use? But we ended up taking it, we got it all ready and set to go, and then we came back, hosted another event, and did a rattle making workshop with the deer hide. So, and then of course, Circle Talk series. We do garbage cleanups at the camp on campus cleanups, and then that's our whole group right here, most of us. And then we also do environmental activism. So we go to marches and we show our support for instance, I think that one was for wet sweating, and then yeah, so we do a lot of environmental advocacy as well. And that's just another picture of our rattle making.
Yeah, this was the actual deer hide that we used. We went to a local place in Winnipeg that used traditional methods to tan the hide, and then we were able to have a rattle making workshop. We brought in a knowledge holder, and they discussed it in different importance of making the rattle and stuff. Okay.
So this, I think this is one of the last slides. So yay, we made it. Reconciliation and revitalization, key components in what Kiskinamakwin, of UMICE, of AccuOn, of all of our resources, all of our projects, and what we're trying to do behind our work. So the practices on the land, obviously were interrupted once by colonization, residential schools, day schools, foster care systems, legislation, racism that caused us to not be able to do our cultural practices and our land-based cultural practices. Also, to add to the reconciliation efforts being made by Canada as a part of our healing journey to reconnect with culture. That's what I've heard from some of the elders, is why this work is so important, because it is reconnecting them to their old way of life, to their relations and their connection to the land. And then, of course, land-based education not only benefits students, but us as well, the scientists that we work with, again, with the elders and the knowledge keepers, we're all learning from each other and benefiting from one another. Land-based learning would benefit any student and would provide opportunity for them to build a stronger connection to the land and develop a sense of stewardship and responsibility to all of our relations. And that is the end of our PowerPoint presentation. I think that was about half an hour. I think we
Maybe a little bit more.
maybe just a little bit more, but that's okay. So we are very grateful and thankful and honored to be asked to speak for the Green Action Center and for the RISE webinar series. Chimi Gwech from myself.
For me, Miigwech.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it. So if anybody has any questions, I see the chat was just bumping during the presentation. I haven't had a chance to read it all. Maybe somebody has oh yeah, okay, yeah, we can share the link to the video in the chat. I see that.
Yes, Beth went and did that. So Beth, you want to start with some questions first there, or we can
I can ask if you want to go back and forth. Sure. So let's see. The first question is, how can we get involved?
If you want to get involved with our organization, with Kiskinamako, and whether you want to host a camp or a workshop or just like learn more, you can visit our website, landlearning.ca. I'll get Dylan to put it in the chat as well, just so you guys have it. And also the email address. You can email me directly. I'm the coordinator. So you can email me info@landlearning.ca, which we'll put that in the chat as well. And we can discuss what you're looking for and how you want to get connected and how you want to collaborate. And I always love hearing from new people. So please reach out.
Great. And Chantel, did you want to take the next one, or?
Yep. Let's see. We just have some comments. Jennifer is an educator for Winnipeg. She says hi. Sarah from Sagin says hi. Miigwech for gathering today. Kathy Simcoe, grade 7 teacher at Toulon Collegiate, says hi. Who was this? Someone says, or we already answered that one, right? By Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, this next one is.
Did we?
Jen?
Oh, yes, about the recording link. Yeah.
Okay, so the other question is, we're looking to develop our understanding capacity for offering land-based education in my school division. This was posed by Jen Lamoureux. She didn't indicate which school division, but I guess she can give you a call or email.
Email or yeah, whatever. I see there's another question in here about how old are the youth that attend land-based camps. So our camps all vary. They all differ. I've had as young as 9 up to 21, 22, 26 even sometimes. So I don't like to put, when planning these camps, I don't like to give specific age groups unless that's what the community wanted. I mean, we are open, but normally we run with like grade 5 to 12 because there is another aspect of our Kiskinamakawan project that we work with the Verna J. Kirkness program. So when we have the older students, grade 11, grade 12, what we do is it gives us the opportunity to bring in some of these youth from those 2 grades who are on their way to graduating and going towards post-secondary education. What they do is that they come back to the university with us for a full week to the university. They choose a professor they want to work with. We get them in a lab. We get them involved in a STEM that they want to. So that's science, technology, science, tech, math. What's the E stand for? Engineering? There's too many acronyms, I'm telling you. But, yeah, so that's always up for discussion. However, depending on who you want to target, right? If you want to target younger ages, we can accommodate that. If you want to get the older teenagers involved over the summer, we can definitely do that as well.
Okay, so that would answer also Carmen Smith. How can we get involved? So what else was there? Beth mentioned there was an article today from Chief Opipon, now Piwin Cree
Piwin?
Nation. Yeah, and Tataskawayak about hydro impacts on their communities. So it was totally related to your presentation there. I had no idea that they were like surrounded by hydro projects. So
Oh, yeah.
looking forward to reading about that. Sarah Fontaine says, I guess mercury would be the thing to test for nuclear waste levels.
Absolutely. Mercury is the one thing that we are unable to test for right now. We are looking into it, especially with communities such as Tatasquiac and Nelson House and things like that are heavily affected by hydro. We don't have access to the type of equipment that we need to do such detailed testing as we do with mercury. And right now we're working on the transportation of the water samples. So when we take these water samples, we have to test them for the heavy metals within like a couple days, right? So it's a matter of collecting these samples, getting them back to the city, then getting them back to a lab. So we're trying to really figure out how we're going to approach that this summer, because it's something that we very, very, very much need in the work that we're doing, since we're working with communities where their water quality is just so heavily affected by industry. So we're working on it.
Good.
And she was just following up saying there's a huge nuclear storage
Yes.
site in Panama for
Hmm.
nuclear waste. Yeah, and basically that runs through Saguin onto the beaches. That's where Bond's water flow is from also. Have you guys started integrating
Probably
that
water.
into your research? Yeah.
Yeah. So then I also see here in the chat about our identification guides. They are still a work in progress. I think probably the plant and the wildlife one will be done before any of the other ones, just because we have summer students that work with us only in the summer. So during the winter months, it's just Dylan and myself plus full-time students. So we are trying to get them out as quickly as possible. And yes, they are. The language and teachings are for Anishinaabe and Cree.
And
They
Cree.
are available.
We chose those because those are, well, obviously a couple of the nations within Manitoba. Also, looking at integrating the Ojibwe and Michif.
Good.
We already shared the video. What else? What business does traditional?
Manitoba buckskin.
But they recently took on a more traditional name. They're located right in St. James, Winnipeg.
I actually want a drum from them.
Nice.
Yeah, a buffalo drum. Yeah.
We have a couple other questions. Do you do any work specifically about climate change? There are times where we touch on climate change with the camps, but not. We could probably add more of it for sure to our curriculum and our planning. I think that would be something we could do. I do quite a bit of work just personally, like on a different side note, on climate change and how it affects Indigenous First Nation communities. So sometimes I try to bring that knowledge into the camps and stuff, but mostly I just do like presentations on it. And
most of the worldview and the way things are approached, we really try to take the sustainability, and that's kind of just integrated into Indigenous worldviews and cultures. So, I mean, it does address climate change to that aspect, but there's not really an aspect of climate change to where this is what's happening. This is what's cascading events, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And then, how is our program funded? Our program is funded through an NSERC Promo Science grant that we received in 2019. But then we also work with SEER and then with Winiskatan, the Environmental Conservation Lab. But majority of our funding does come from NSERC and then also from Eco Canada.
I would also like, I see one more comment here. I'd just like to say something about the booklets. These booklets are integrating a little bit of language, but they're not directly in the language. So, for example, the plant identification booklet is your generic plant ID booklet, but it has different fine tunes to it that'll incorporate the culture and the language. So I'm writing it so I'm not fluent in Ojibwe or Cree, but I'm using other resources to ensure that that language is being incorporated.
Yeah, we try to incorporate language as much as possible. And like Jen said in the chat, it's so valuable, right? Our entire like knowledge system is based off of our language and the land, right? So when we have those two components involved in our work, then we know that we're really making the step towards what we're trying to accomplish here in our programming. So like Dylan said, our booklets, it has the identification, the common names that in the language. It is a possibility because we do work with very, very intelligent elders and knowledge keepers who would be able to potentially translate the entire booklet eventually into a language. Obviously, that would take a lot of work and probably a long time. Like our booklets aren't terribly long, and it's something that we can definitely that we should definitely consider in the future. But at this time now, they're in English with a little bit of sass in between with language, a little bit of language sparkle in the book here and there.
Nice. So I noticed like on slide 13 there, I don't know what they're called, but like how you do the sample boxes. Do you partner with anyone to get those? Do you have to purchase them, borrow them?
The labs that we got. So
Yeah.
we purchased our mobile labs from Aquatic Life. So that's who we worked with. That's where we got it from. They were quite pricey. I think all of our equipment came up to like $30,000 plus 33, maybe something around that. Yeah.
Wow.
And they're not even that big. So when we got them, I was like, that's insane. And actually, like a little funny story on the side is that when I saw the price and I'm reading like mobile lab, when I was like first starting to work, I'm like, they actually bought a truck that like has these labs in it, and then we got them in the mail and it was just like a briefcase. I'm like, oh, you mean a mobile I can carry it, not a mobile I can ride it.
Wow, that's awesome.
A moment for the day when I was just starting out.
Nice. All right, so there was questions about the series, and like I said, this is the 6th in the series for this year's webinars, and all of them have been recorded. So if you missed any previous ones, you can go to our YouTube Green Action Center website, and we'll have a playlist of this year's and as well as last year's. We actually had Seer present their program, 7th Generation Warriors, as well, who you're partnered with. And so I'm just going to do some wrap up here. If there's any more comments or final questions, we got a couple more minutes. You want to say any closing remarks yourselves?
I just want to thank you guys again. I know I kind of just popped up out of nowhere, but
he has a tendency of doing that.
No, I have fun doing this, and it's nice to see and hear all the feedback and all the questions. So thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, miigwech Kozi for having us and for allowing us to share the work that we're very passionate in doing. And summer's just around the corner. Get your kids, your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews out on the land and teach them as much as learn from each other, right? Mm-hmm. So every little bit of time you spend outdoors on the land you're getting closer to that traditional lifestyle.
Okay, well, I've shared the link for our blog, where it has all the recordings listed. So if you miss any, you can check it out. You're also welcome to check them out when you got time as well.
Sure.
All right. I'd like to say, miigwech, thank you for being able to come. You were our last presenters, and this is so informative and eye-opening, and I had no idea this camp existed, and I'm so glad we were able to help get the word out about it, and that you're actually able to do some camps this year. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody.
All right.
See your day.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.